What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and I trust that you are excited. Today is Monday, November 21st, 2022. It is a Victory Polo Monday, but it's November 21st. That means it's a little chilly outside. So I had my polo on earlier, but I had to put the hoodie on, had to just stay warm, had to fight the elements. That's what I'm out here to do today. It's going to be a very quick week for the Dallas Cowboys, obviously playing on Thursday, Thanksgiving Day, against the New York Giants. We don't really have a ton of time to dwell on their 40-3 thrashing of the Minnesota Vikings because we have to get ready for the Giants after Thursday, after the Cowboys hopefully get to 8-3. We can take a breath, we can relax, and we can look back on what was hopefully a very prosperous 5-day production window for this team. But right now, as we move forward into week 12, today is Monday. Monday Night Football has yet to be played. So technically the week of 11 is not over. Week 11 is not over. Whatever the case may be, the San Francisco 49ers, who we hope lose, are playing the Arizona Cardinals on Monday night in Mexico. Why do we hope the Niners lose? I'll be honest with you, because we're scared of them. I don't want to see the Niners in the playoffs. Last year was harmful. Last year was devastating. I do not want to go through that again, even though this Cowboys team appears to be one of the best teams in the NFL. And when you say something like that, a lot of people roll their eyes. Oh, I've heard it before. They've only won 2 playoff games since whatever. They haven't won the Super Bowls, blah, blah, blah. Okay, like enough of the lame jokes. Let's talk about who they are objectively this season. And who that is one of the best teams in the NFL. Now, again, I'm recording this before Monday Night Football, so we do not have data from the 49ers or the Cardinals, but it's unlikely that they pass the Cowboys in this capacity. If we take a look, Football Outsiders has DVOA ratings through Sunday's action. All right, so what you're looking at here, I know it's a little bit tiny. Don't worry, I'll walk you through. I'll hold your hand. The Buffalo Bills remain the top team in the NFL through DVOA. If you are unfamiliar with this metric, this method of evaluation from Football Outsiders, it effectively measures how efficient or how good overall a given team is by adjusting for everything, by adjusting for levels of efficiency, by adjusting for qualities of opponent. It is an important way of assessing how NFL teams look. It is not the end all be all. No statistic is, but this gets rid of some things. Some teams or some people, like to go and say things like, oh, well, so-and-so, this team has more yards. Yards don't tell the whole story. How did they get those yards? DVOA weeds out that extracurricular noise and helps us get to the core of who these teams are. So DVOA through Sunday of week 11 believes that the Buffalo Bills are the best team in the NFL. If you look over in the second column, you see previous week's rank. The Buffalo Bills were the number 1 team in DVOA a week ago. So even though they kind of barely beat the Cleveland Browns, it was a tough game for them in Detroit after the snowstorm and whatnot. The Bills remain number 1. They are 6th in offensive DVOA, which, if it isn't shocking, obviously measures specifically their production on offense. They are 3rd defensively, and they are 3rd in special teams. Now, the Dallas Cowboys are only 7-3, which the Bills are as well, by the way. The Kansas City Chiefs have 8 wins. The Philadelphia Eagles have 9 wins. The Minnesota Vikings, who the Cowboys just beat, have 8 wins. But that's why we're not just looking at records here. We're not just looking at standings. DVOA goes a little bit deeper, and the Dallas Cowboys have jumped as high. This is the highest they've been. They are number 2 in DVOA through Sunday of week 11. They are the 2nd best team through this method of evaluation, which tells us that they are, in fact, one of the more elite teams in the NFL. And what I think is the most unbelievable part about this, we mentioned the Bills, 6th offensively, 3rd defensively, 3rd from a special team standpoint. The Cowboys are 13th offensively. 13th. All right. The next team who is anywhere outside of the top 10 is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are 8th in overall DVOA, but they are 17th in offensive DVOA. They have not been missing Tom Brady or anything like that. They have just been bad. The Cowboys are obviously 13th because of the 5-game stretch that they had without Dak Prescott. Cooper Rush did a wonderful job winning 4 of those games, but they did not exactly look great. And so the fact that the Cowboys are this high at this point in the season speaks to a lot of things, namely how great their defense is. If you look at it, the Cowboys are 2nd in defensive DVOA, but their special teams, they are 2nd in special teams DVOA. They have the 2nd best defense in the NFL by way of this metric, the 2nd best special teams group in the NFL by way of this metric. If you're curious, the number 1 defense in DVOA is the New England Patriots. So if you are somebody who does not believe that Matt Judon deserves Defensive Player of the Year, maybe think again. He's been playing wonderfully, although we obviously hope it goes to Micah Parsons. But the Patriots, number 1 in defensive DVOA. In special teams DVOA, the Baltimore Ravens lead the way. And as you can see, they are 11th in defensive DVOA. They are 5th offensively, and they rank 3rd overall. So the special teams really kind of carrying the Ravens. That means, yes, the Philadelphia Eagles are not inside of the top 3. Through Sunday's action, The Buffalo Bills, number 1 in overall DVOA. The Dallas Cowboys at number 2. The Baltimore Ravens at number 3. That's where they were last week. And the Philadelphia Eagles coming in at number 4. By the way, the Kansas City Chiefs, number 5. They had the huge win on Sunday Night Football thanks to Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. It should not shock you to learn that the Chiefs are number 1 in offensive DVOA. But the only changes to that top 5 came at spots 2 and 4, which are occupied by the Dallas Cowboys and Philadelphia Eagles. Number 1 remained the same from week 11 to week 12. The Buffalo Bills. Number 3 remained the same. The Baltimore Ravens. Number 5 remained the same. The Kansas City Chiefs. But the Dallas Cowboys not only leapfrogged the Baltimore Ravens, but leapfrogged the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Philadelphia Eagles not only fell behind the Cowboys, they fell behind the Ravens. This was a seismic week for the Cowboys. And look, nobody gives out trophies for coming in second place in overall team DVOA the Monday before Thanksgiving. But this is important context. This tells us that this is, in fact, a very functional team. This isn't a team that's just getting by and beating bad teams or anything like that. This is one of the most sound teams in the NFL. And I point to, again, the fact that they are 13th in offensive DVOA because they are only getting better. They are getting incredibly better offensively. Think about it. The last 4 games for the Cowboys, obviously looking at the games that Dak Prescott returned for, the Detroit Lions game from an offensive standpoint, a little bit tough, obviously knocking some rust off and whatnot. But the next week against the Chicago Bears, scoring touchdowns on their first 4 possessions. Last week against the Green Bay Packers, I know they blew a 14-point fourth quarter lead, and that irks us still. But you know what? They had a 14-point fourth quarter lead. This offense was getting it done. And obviously on Sunday in Minnesota, scoring on their first 7 possessions. Some of that goes to special teams because of the field goals, long field goals, the kick returns, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it was just an absolute clinic in every sense of the word. And so the Cowboys are improving. So if they already have one of the best defenses in the NFL, if they already have one of the best special teams groups in the NFL, their offense catching up and getting to that level is what is making them an incredibly sound overall team, which is very, very exciting with regards to the future and obviously the rest of this season. But DVOA is just one metric that I like to use personally in evaluating teams. Like I said, I don't think there's one way that you can look at something and say, this says this, so this is the end of the conversation. DVOA is definitely one of the most valued metrics in my estimation, but another one is point differential. And point differential can be skewed, to be very fair. Turnover differential can be skewed, to be fair. As an example, the Cowboys had 5 takeaways against the Detroit Lions. That doesn't happen all the time, right? That inflates things just a little bit. But that being said, point differential can tell us a lot about a team. It can't tell us everything, but it can tell us a lot because it can tell us you're scoring a lot, you're not scoring a lot, or vice versa. So what is your differential? So again, not factoring in the game the 49ers and the Cardinals are going to play against one another. That game's really not going to impact these sort of things unless somebody wins 100-0. But nevertheless, here is where point differential stands through Sunday of week 11. The Buffalo Bills, shocker here, lead the way with a plus 107 differential. All right, the Buffalo Bills have scored 281 points on the season, and they have only allowed 174, which is why they have such a massive turnover differential. Who comes in at second? You're watching right there on the screen. Who is second in the NFL in point differential? That would be the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys, who have scored 251 points to this point in the season while only allowing 167. And again, you can't tell the whole story. You can't just look at those points or whatever. And that's why all of this is important context. They have a point differential of plus 84. The Philadelphia Eagles trail the Cowboys in this capacity. They have only scored 12 more points than Dallas on the season, despite having their franchise quarterback available for 5 more games than the Cowboys have had Dak Prescott. They have only scored 12 more points than the Dallas Cowboys, and they have allowed 16 more at 183 to give them a differential of plus 80. If we look at this, and I think that when we looked at DVOA, those top teams, it all kind of feels right. You look at that list, you say, well, those do feel like the best teams in the NFL. The top teams in point differential, again, before Monday Night Football, the Buffalo Bills, Dallas Cowboys, Philadelphia Eagles, Kansas City Chiefs, the Cincinnati Bengals, who are coming, the Baltimore Ravens, who are coming, the New England Patriots, who have certainly struggled, but definitely a sound team in a lot of senses. The 49ers, that will likely change, obviously, unless they tie with the Arizona Cardinals, the Seattle Seahawks, the New York Jets, the Miami Dolphins. That's the thing. The Dolphins are kind of, they either win big or lose big. They're, kind of at both ends of the spectrum. That's why you can't tell the whole story. The Jacksonville Jaguars, the Tennessee Titans, they lost, obviously, on Sunday, but you will note that the New York Giants are not on this list. That's because the Giants are winning these tight games. you don't have to blow teams out to be an elite team, to be very clear here. All right. There is some credit towards winning close games the way the Giants were before Sunday afternoon against the Lions, but it proves how unsustainable that is. And that's why looking at point differential says, well, these teams just wax the teams that they're playing. So they're likely going to continue that behavior week in and week out. And that's what is very, 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 very exciting. We've been talking about this for a lot, but I think it is something that we all have to know, that we all have to pay attention to, because the Dallas Cowboys are second in overall DVOA. They are second in point differential right now. And take a look at their remaining games. They get the New York Giants on Thanksgiving Day, the Indianapolis Colts, the Houston Texans at Jacksonville, the Philadelphia Eagles. That is a very tough game. At Tennessee. Tennessee's definitely in that top 10 range. And then at Washington to end it all. These are teams who rank near the bottom in these important categories. Meanwhile, the Philadelphia Eagles, who are starting to take on a little bit of water, the Green Bay Packers, Tennessee Titans themselves, they have 2 games remaining against the Giants, the Chicago Bears, this Dallas Cowboys team in Dallas, and the New Orleans Saints on the penultimate week of the regular season. The whole reason we had this conversation here today is because I think there are some people who, look, I've said this already, but I allowed myself, speaking for just me, to live in the emotion leading up to the Cowboys-Packers game. I allowed myself to get swept up in that and to assign some level of validity to that and to say, man, we didn't win this game, so that's a big bummer. But ultimately, it doesn't seem like that was a thing. It doesn't seem like the Cowboys approached it that way. So I'm fine, waving my fan flag and saying that was something that I did. That was a big deal that I made in my head. Now, that being said, there are a lot of people who were scarred or hurt or burned by the Cowboys' loss at Lambeau Field that are starting to say things like, well, I can't trust this team. I can't, it's hard for me to trust this team after. No. You can trust this team because this was a massive indication of who they are. And yes, you can certainly argue that of their massive point differential, a positive 37 points came from Sunday's, destruction of the Minnesota Vikings. But all of that is fair game. All of that is fair context. This Cowboys team is in fact one of the best teams in the NFL. You can believe it, you can lock it up in your heart, and you can know it to be true. That does not guarantee that they will win the Super Bowl because this sport and this game is very, very, very hard. But they have put themselves in the best possible position that they could be in entering Thanksgiving, and that is an exciting thing. Like I said, this week's going to move fast here, so make sure you subscribe to the Blog of the Boys podcast network. Make sure you subscribe here on the Blog of the Boys YouTube channel. We'll have tons of stuff coming out. My name is RJ Ochoa. You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at RJ Ochoa, on TikTok at rj.ochoa. You can send me an email, rj.ochoa@sbnation.com, or you can leave a comment down below, and we'll get to those. Also, if we don't talk to you, that would be a shame, but if we know you have busy lives, things like that. So if we don't talk to you, we hope you have a very happy Thanksgiving. We'll be here afterwards for our live post-game show. As always, go Cowboys. We'll see you next time.